Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to have a little chat about the ongoing worrying trend from Forge World of essentially removing choice. See, there's been another bunch of last chance to buy stuff going on, and there's been another load of Horus Heresy stuff being removed. Rhino doors, Land Raider doors, that kind of thing. And it is once again cutting down on the way you can actually customise your, in this case, vehicles, but more Space Marine chapters or legions as a whole. See, there's been a lot of stuff taken off Forge World over the last, honestly, over the last year. There's an excellent rundown of what's been taken away on the Outer Circle, which I'll put a link in the description down below so you can see exactly what's gone missing over the last, I think it's about the last year or so. And there is a distinct trend when it comes to this stuff, and it is all stuff that is essentially, well, not all, but it is largely comprised of stuff that is used to denote difference between legions, to personalise your Space Marine collection, especially for 30k. That to me seems especially important. I mean, 30k, the entire focus is on Space Marines. That's the whole point of that setting. That's the whole point of the Horus Heresy setting. And removing various ways to differentiate your Land Raider from an Iron Hands Land Raider, for instance, whilst it's nice to do in 40k, I would argue that it's pretty damn important to do in 30k. And there is probably the argument of, well, it costs extra, all of that kind of thing. If you're sinking money into a 30k army, you're not hugely considering price to begin with, let's be honest. 30k is very much the wheelhouse of Forge World, and Forge World is undoubtedly and significantly more expensive than Games Workshop in quite a number of cases. Vehicles especially are just way more expensive from Forge World as a whole. And so if you're thinking of starting a 30k army, you're probably going to want to go that extra step and spend the extra tenner to make the vehicle look like your Legion's vehicle. The thing is, them removing this stuff isn't just applicable to the Horus Heresy. It's not just applicable to 30k. It has a knock-on effect into 40k as well. See, there are a number of, frankly, very, very useful customization options available from Forge World. There's a bunch of different shoulder pads for Mark II and Mark III armor for pretty much every legion. There is a bunch of different torsos. There's a bunch of different heads that are available. And all of those are things that can be applied to 40k. And in fact, in the case of some of the stuff, you simply don't have a 40k equivalent of what those are. Like, if you want White Scar's shoulder pads, you either go to Forge World or you go to a third-party manufacturer. If you want, thinking about it, even Imperial Fists still don't have their own, upgrade sprue. It's still something that you need to get from there. You got it in the Battle Force that was shown at Christmas, that was available at Christmas, but you didn't actually get it separately at any point. There's another one as well, Raven Guard, also distinctly lacking in upgrade options on the Games Workshop site. And in fact, the Games Workshop site does have a good number. I mean, you have Ultramarines and Dark Angels and Blood Angels and Space Wolves, but those are also weirdly mixed about, whereby some of them are designed for Primaris and some of them are designed for just standard Space Marines. It's not an even playing field by any stretch of the imagination. And one of the biggest things you can do to denote particular chapters or particular changes to your own Space Marine army is to do something simple like change out the pauldrons or change out the head. And in terms of options for heads, again, Forge World is essentially the only place you can really go unless you want to go third party. The thing that worries me with all this last chance to buy stuff is that it seems to slowly be more and more the case that you don't have those customization options available to you. They seem to be whittling down the number of options that you have to make your Space Marine chapter or your Legion your own. And as someone who has bought quite a lot of upgrade stuff specifically from Forge World, that is genuinely disappointing, and it's genuinely a little bit concerning, purely because of, if nothing else, trying to keep themes the same. So, for instance, where is he? I've got him here somewhere, or I might have put him back. There we go, there he is. So, for instance, the Dark Imperium box, the Primaris side of that, I wanted to do something a little bit different with those, and so I bought a bunch of Night Lords heads from Forge World, because they are creepy, they're cool, they're like little skull helms, And so all my guys had a Night Lord's helm instead of a standard helm, which they have a white face and the rest of the armour is black. I can now see a point, possibly not even that far in the future, whereby stuff like that just isn't available, or the variety has gone down. I mean, there is, of course, the fact that you need to consider how much stuff is selling, like whether it's worth producing more, whether it's selling enough to warrant the actual production of it. That is a genuine concern, and I'm sure that a lot of the stuff they've taken off just weren't selling enough to warrant making more. But at the same time, the rate at which stuff has disappeared and the way that it's disappeared, the way that things have been introduced for like a couple of months and then just vanished into nothing, kind of worries me a bit that we might start to see the same thing happen to, say, the shoulder pads or the heads. I mean, I'm sure there was like a bunch of torsos that were introduced. There might have even been Space Wolf ones, thinking about it, that were introduced and disappeared very, very quickly. Like, relatively instantly in comparison to everything else. I think it was only a couple of months before they were taken into Last Chance to Buy and then vanished altogether. Losing that customization isn't just bad for Horus Heresy, it's bad for literally everybody, because there are options on Forge World that just are not available on Games Workshop. There are, I guess, what you could call canon parts that you cannot get from third party, or at least not quite the same. The thing I like about the current range on Forge World when it comes to the Heresy stuff is just the sheer number of options it gives you. It is the fact that, yes, you might spend another £8, but you can take your Primaris squad and make them look different to someone else's Primaris squad with essentially just a head swap. You can completely change the character of a Space Marine chapter with just a head swap. You can also very easily denote the loyalty or history of a chapter purely by sticking a shoulder pad on with a symbol. And Games Workshop don't provide those options. They used to. They used to a lot more than they do now. And for some stuff they kind of do, but quite a lot of it is old and not quite of the same standard or quality that you would expect the new stuff to be at. Forge World right now is the best point for that, but the more stuff that goes Last Chance to Buy, the more Horus Heresy stuff, the more stuff that is Legion specific goes Last Chance to Buy, the more I worry that we will get to a point whereby if you want to play that particular system, then you will not be left with any options with how to upgrade your stuff. You will not be left with a way to denote what your chapter is outside of your Legion, outside of colour scheme. You won't have those moulded representations of what those legions are. Now, just doing colour scheme is fine, and for most people that's okay, and I don't have a problem with that at all. If you want to just paint it the right colour and you're not fussed about customising the head, about making sure the shoulder pads are just right, about going with the torso that is specifically designed for word bearers or whatever, that's absolutely fine. But more options are never bad than fewer options. There is no point where it's actually better to not have the choice. There's no point where it's actually better to not be able to customize your stuff the way that you would like to customize it. And the rate things are going at the moment, it's starting to feel like we're going to lose most of that customization in not a huge amount of time. And that makes me genuinely worried. I don't think I'm particularly worried about where Forge World is. Forge World seems to be doing just fine. And in some respects, you still have those customization options. You still have those Legion-specific options. I mean, when you look at things like the Leviathan Dreadnoughts, the Contemptors, they are, unquestionably, you have a good variety of stuff to pick from with those. But when it comes to the rank and file, when it comes to the Space Marines, when it comes to the stuff that Games Workshop don't cater to on their own site, Forge World is right now for me, one of the best places to get that stuff. It's one of the places that provide exactly what those chapters or legions would have, and those options are slowly being taken away. Now, I don't know whether they would go so far as to take away all the pauldrons, whether they go so far as to take away all their different head options. I would hope not. But it's starting to feel like it's actually not that unrealistic, and it would be a genuine shame if that was the case. Because much though it's easy to look at Forge World and go, well, actually, that's, it's overpriced, or the quality isn't great, or whatever. They do at least provide that little bit extra over what Games Workshop provides. And I have to admit, the last few things I've bought have been way, way better quality than some of the stuff I bought back in the day. The actual overall quality seems to have been ramped up a fair bit. Contemptors especially seem to be pretty much up there. Yeah, I just don't want to see that stuff disappear, and I'd be sad if it did, and I'm kind of hoping that we won't see a slow but steady exodus of all of the customization options for the Legions just march off into Last Chance to Buy and never be seen again, because that's not great for the player, and it's a great way to drive people to other sources for those parts, which you don't really want to do, let's be honest. Anyway, that was a little bit rambly, but just a little thinking aloud over the current trend of what seems to be vanishing from Forge World more often than not. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any particular worries of what Forge World might get rid of next, if you think that actually stuff like shoulder pads, heads, that kind of thing would be safe as far as you can tell, then let me know in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video, subscribe, all that shit. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to. And as always, there's an affiliate link to Element Games in the description where you can buy 40k stuff or other tabletop stuff and get a discount on it. And I get a little something for sending you that way, which is an option too if you would like to. Don't have to, it's entirely up to you. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Toodaloo.